Hello, everyone. I'm Dian Griesel. I'm also known as Silver Disobedience, and this is the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast. And we're sitting in iconic Manhattan Center. So great mojo here, super juju, and I'm excited to have a very interesting episode with you. What we're going to be talking about is this, and I'm going to look at some notes because I want to make sure I get all these statistics correct because they're very fascinating to me. Did you know annually in the United States alone, the fashion and beauty industries combined are valued at a whopping $475 billion. 55 million U.S. millennial women, we're going to take the group of, let's say, age 27 to 42, are each spending on average $6,000 each, or about $260 billion annually. Those are big numbers. Jump to my age group, we'll say the women age 57 and up, and you add another $155 billion into the annual spend on fashion and beauty items. So that's about $3,700 per woman age 57 plus. Yet here's where this topic gets interesting and what we're going to start to look at today. Most advertising caters to, or shall I say features, the 18 to 28-year-old female demographic. Now that demographic spends 68 billion, or about 4,000 annually. So that's a big drop compared to either of the other two. So I'm going to be talking today with Charlotte Reardon. She's a Wilhelmina model, and she is bringing an entirely new look to the runway and has been an advocate for really showing all kinds of women, all kinds of shapes, athletic, tattooed, different. And it's working. It's getting the attention of advertisers, companies worldwide, and certainly a lot of magazines. She's graced the pages of many of the glamour magazines that you might imagine. And we're going to be talking about modeling, the industry, the money, and other ventures. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hi, Diane. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
It is so much fun to have you here. You have had a really interesting background. You didn't start as a model.
I didn't know, Diane. Well, you know how I started.
Well, let's talk about that. How did you start?
Yeah. So I came to America as a dancer. As a struggling dancer almost 17 years ago to the day.
Oh
quite
my
literally.
gosh.
Yeah, I think my anniversary is coming up like this week. And I started out auditioning, nothing, yada, yada, yada. Like everyone else that comes to New York is like, I'm going to make it in New York. And I eventually became, among other things, a Rockette. And that was kind of what I guess catapulted my career. And from dancing...
Wait a second. We can't just go, I became a Rockette, because I have to pause a second there, because seriously, I've seen the Christmas show and a few other Rockette shows at different times of the year, and the symmetry, I can't imagine the stress of being a Rockette.
Yeah, that's why I was it for one season only. It only happened for a short time. And you know what's so interesting, Diane, is obviously I'm British, so coming from England, I go home and I'm like, hey guys, I'm a Rockette. Nobody knows what that is in England. So it's like, it's a big deal over here, but you go back to England, they're like, okay, and? So it's definitely hard work. I think I got very lucky because I didn't do the lining up, the audition process, the yada, yada, yada. It was me finding one way in, which was literally a flash mob. At Christmas in August and finding, whoever was in charge there and, just working your way up. But yes, definitely the rehearsal process is, for want of a better word, a nightmare, because everything has to be completely perfect, literally by the inch or less. And yeah, from there, moving on, I think my dancing career got cut shorter than anybody, everybody always wants it to last forever, right? But let's be honest. And my father would always say, what are you going to do when you can't dance anymore? And I say, yeah, but Dad, I'm going to dance forever. I'm going to dance forever. And
You still have some pretty good moves.
Well,
they
yeah.
just might not be on the stage as
yeah,
much
it's just
anymore.
not exactly the same. But at about
you do a mean Macarena.
Thank you. I agree, actually.
I highly encourage you all to follow Charlotte, and we're going to have links for her, but you've got to go back a year or two and find her doing the Macarena. I promise it's priceless.
I'll redo it for you. It'll be better this time. So, yeah. And then moving on from there, at about 24 or 25, I was kind of lost for what to do. Mm-hmm. Really lost. And, although I have a great upbringing, great school, I didn't really have any direction because I was so obsessed with being a dancer. Mm-hmm. So once that stopped, I felt like I'd kind of lost my identity, because when you do something so much at a young age, you kind of become it fully. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yes, it does.
But you really are just so engrossed. Like all my friends were dancers. My boyfriends were dancers. My roommates were dancers. Mm-hmm. Everything was so dance oriented. Like all the videos I watched, yada, yada, yada. Mm-hmm. So for me, from there, I was very lucky again, but I pursued a lead from a family friend in London for a modeling agency. Because I was like, well, I guess I could be on a talent agency. Like, that's the same as dancing, right? Mm-hmm. Turns out you and I both know how different modeling is to anything else on the planet and different to what anyone else thinks modeling is that isn't in the industry.
Exactly.
So that's a conversation for another day, maybe, because it's a long one. But yeah, so getting signed with MSA in 2010. Mm-hmm. I think it was, 2010, which are now state management. Uh-huh. So they changed hands probably like 8 or 9 years ago. But in 2010, it was MSA, and it was the biggest fit modeling agency. And I didn't even know what a fit model was.
Yes, I think that would be a good one to explain to everyone. What is a fit model? Because it's a very unique specialty in the world of modeling.
It really is. And it's, in my opinion, I call it the James Bond of jobs in the modeling industry, because it's the one that is so fundamental to fashion, in my opinion. I mean, literally without fit models, you do not have garments. Whether it's AI generated, whether it's done on a mannequin, whether it's done on a human, it's still a fit model. And I also believe that it's like the superpower that's been holding it together, and the one that nobody knows about, Diane.
Exactly.
Nobody knows. They say, oh, yeah, you're a fitness model. You're a fitness model.
That's exactly it.
I'm
People
absolutely
mix
the
up those
opposite of a fitness model. Because if I was fitness and all muscles galore, I would never get hired. Because the majority woman doesn't look like an action man. So,
although you are incredibly fit, so we're going to talk about that too in a minute. But
thanks
first,
for saying that. But
let's elaborate on what is a fit model. What does a fit model do?
Yeah, I think it doesn't. A fit model is many, many things. But what I will try and say in a sentence or two is you're essentially a human mannequin, and you work at the back end of a fashion house with a production assistant or a production designer, and you are helping construct the garments. So every item of clothing that you're wearing, that anyone on the planet is wearing, has been approved by a fit model. So you help with the measurements, you help how this is lifting, you help how long the sleeve is going to be. You essentially are a certain size, and I was between a 4, a 6, and at one point even made it to an 8, depending on the brand. And you fit an exact set of measurements. So most of the time it was a straight size 6. Which is like a waist 27, 28. And it's essentially the mid-size of the brand that sells.
Now, is that size 6, when you say you fit a size 6, is that a size 6 for Calvin Klein, the same as... No. Okay, so let's talk about that. Yeah. So each brand, which is what you notice in stores, each brand has their own sizing.
And something I will say to try and solidify what a real fit model means, because it is kind of open, it's kind of creative as well at times, because sometimes fit models just test fabrics. And sometimes fit models just do something called a fit test, which means you're trying on a final sample size. But for me, I usually worked with most of the brands that I had, and I mean, you name it, I've worked with them. Fit modeling, I mean, you could name every brand under the sun, and I could tell you I've either been to a casting or worked with them in some capacity. But what you're doing is you're starting, like, let's say you want a T-shirt, Diane, and you have your production assistant, you have your design team, you have the fabrics, you have everything, and then you have the fit model, because that's the person that you make the clothes on. So it's the beginning to end process, essentially, as a fit model. So there's no photo shoots, there's no hair and makeup, there's no runway shows. You're in a fit test, you're in a room, you're doing a corporate job, it's a 9 to 5 or whatever it is. So that, hopefully I've made that clear enough for your listeners to understand what that is. You can Google it and they'll give you a few other answers, but essentially you're a human mannequin. And for me, what I was, for example, like Guess jeans, I was a size 6, I would say straight. Apple bottom jeans, I was a 4 back in the day, you know, because it's slightly curvier. Calvin Klein, I was always a 6. G3, which is kind of the umbrella that has Calvin Klein, Karl Lagerfeld, CK Performance, The Gap, a bunch of other brands. I was between a 4 and a 6. So I would shuffle my way through the floors. It's on Fifth Avenue, and being different sizes, because depending, it's really all on sales, isn't it? So depending on what sells the most is what size I would fit for. So like, let's say, for example, years ago, I used to fit for White House Black Market, which is slightly bigger sizing in terms of, like, it was what you call Missy or contemporary. And Missy is a term for somebody that has had children or is older than 29, let's say. So your body changes after children, I believe.
It does.
But I would still fit that Missy, and contemporary is more like, imagine a Forever 21 or a slightly younger brand, which is for 20s or younger. So those were the difference. And White House Black Market was more Missy. And for me, I would be a very small size in White House Black Market because of the way in which they graded the sizes. But I would still fit for them because size 4s and 6 were the most that sold. And that is how a fit model usually is determined. So
Very
I hope
fascinating. No, that was a good education.
Yeah.
So when you're working as a fit model, I guess every measurement becomes crucial. And you really have to stay very static on the line, not flexing above it or below it.
Correct.
Well, that's a challenge.
Yeah, definitely a challenge. But I also feel like when I first started, I was so regimented, and I had, you know, little to no clients. I went through an array of agencies, and at first was like, oh God, I had 1 or 2 clients, right? But I was so regimented on trying to make sure that I was exactly 27. And if my waist had gone lower than 27, I was like, oh no, have a giant coffee, or, you know, I would really do everything I could.
A giant coffee to go above.
To try and, you know, to do anything I could.
Spoken like a true model.
Well,
I think I'll have a coffee to add an inch to my waist.
With a lot of cream. How about that? I don't know. But yeah, so for me, or a pastry maybe as well. But for me now, I think it was more about, for me, it's about forgiving myself through my body changes. And like a couple of years ago, I was probably more of a 2, and now I'm headed more into a 6, and that's okay. It's very hard, obviously, when you're working for a brand, because it's not personal, Diane. It's like, if you're an electrician and you can't make the lights work, they're not going to hire you.
Right.
If you need to be a size 4 and you're suddenly a size 6, it's not, you know, a lot of people get it misconstrued, and it's really not that. It's not, oh my God, how dare you be in fashion, you're the wrong size. It's like, I was once fitting for a massive brand that used to sell to QVC, I mean humongous brand that I won't obviously name here, and I had a full-time job with them, and I got dropped because I lost 2 inches on my waist by no fault of my own. I just thought, I'm going to have green juices instead of whatever it was. I used to have to like drink mochas in the morning or something. Instead of having a hot chocolate, I'm going to have a green juice because it's good for me. And I suddenly dropped 2 inches on my waist, and they noticed that the sales were going off, skew whiff. And that's my fault. That's my responsibility. So of course I'm going to get fired. But, you know, at the time, a bit younger, 10 years ago, I'd be like, oh no, you know. But now it's more like, hey, I'm just going to accept who I am, where I am, and whatever client I go with, it's going to be fine, you know.
Now, at some point, in addition to fit modeling, which you did very successfully, and you still do, you started to go on to runways. Yeah.
Yes, I did, Diane. And actually, thanks to you for, because we've known each other quite a long time now. When you and I first came connected, I'd just done my first few runway shows. And it was my story, kind of how we met each other, our intro to becoming connected. But yeah, I can't recall exactly where it came from, but I do remember one exact client I was working with, and they were like, hey, you're not bad looking. And because fit models also are notorious for kind of having great bodies and like doing good things, but not being the most attractive model on the planet, not the Victoria's Secret style. It was more, lifestyle, right? But hold on a minute. Isn't that everyone in America or in the world? Not everyone is that top 0.1% of massive attraction, and everyone is attractive in their own special way. And I had a really cool brand, if I may be so judgmental and say, pull me aside and were like, hey, Charlotte, you might be 5'7.5". I say I'm 5'8". You might be a size 6 with bruises all over your legs, the thighs, not the size that you would usually see on the runway, and 2 arms full of tattoos. But you fit our brand really well, and we really like the way you look in the clothes. So would you do a runway show? And it was literally a presentation, and I thought nothing of it. I was obviously terrified and incredibly nervous and, just like, oh my God. But it was great because of my background in dance.
Yes.
So you go in, you have a rehearsal, you go into hair and makeup, you do all these things. And I realized, Diane, I love it. It was so fun to me. And it really scratched that itch that I think you can't quite get anywhere else when you've stopped dancing and being on stage. So for me, I did my first runway show in 2021, I believe. Gosh, February 2021, I think, or was it 22? I think it was 21. And that was the catapult of kind of now what I've been doing each fashion week. And every fashion week, it's always funny because you and I text, you're like, what are you doing this fashion week? I'm like, I haven't booked anything. This is my last fashion week. And then I always get something somehow. And you're always like, don't worry, I think you're going to get it. It's always this like last minute thing. But
that's the world of
it's really fashion
modeling. So much of it is, what are you doing tomorrow? Or,
so well.
We just sent you a call sheet. Make sure you look at it. You're on set tomorrow at 6 a.m.
I mean, it so well. It so well. So exactly that. Or, hey, we're in hair and makeup already. How far are you from this event space?
Can you get here in an hour?
If you remember a couple of years ago, I need Charlotte Reardon model in a text message sent to me. And I was like, okay, Diane, I think we're getting in a cab. Do you want to come? Or
yeah, we went from the, I think it was a Nolcha show in the Mercedes building down to Soho for a...
Yeah, it was Ideal Glass.
Ideal Glass. Yes.
For a last-minute runway show. Yeah, so that's how it goes. But so that was what started and what also piqued my interest. Because although it's all fun and games doing a runway show, I felt like I had so much to stand for, and I felt like I also had a responsibility to my age demographic getting up there. And I still feel like that now. I'm still, most of the time, believe it or not, the oldest person in the room.
Unless I'm there.
Unless you're there, yeah. Unless you're there, which
I'm usually the oldest person in the room. It's really funny.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny for you and I because we always have this discussion off camera, obviously. But me being in my mid, almost to late 30s now, and you obviously being in your 60s, we're almost 30 years apart, I believe, or a little bit over.
A solid at least 30.
There you go. See, so, and how we still have great connections. But for you, for your demographic, you're usually older, and me, I'm older. And runway is so young. It really is so young. And I definitely feel like I have a lot of work to do, obviously, here. But it has been really fulfilling and really special to sit in the makeup chair next to a 19-year-old girl that, is got flown over from Paris to do this show and what have you, and me being like, hey, sometimes it does feel like a lot because I'm walking in a next to nothing bikini at Miami Swim Week, and I can definitely
And I will say you looked good in that bikini.
Thank you. But it is, I do still feel a certain level of self-consciousness, and I think everybody does. But it's been really fabulous. So I'm really grateful to vouch for those mid-30s women, the millennials, with those bigger thighs, with those cyclist thighs. And those boxing arms and tattoos and whatever else, stretch marks. And yeah.
Well, you're such a good spokesperson, and you're certainly a good visual look for it. I mean, when you see pictures of you, you move so fluidly. You do. We can't see really any tattoos now, but you do have tattoos up your
All
arm.
over.
And it's a different look on the runway.
Yeah.
And it's a different look when you see it in a fashion magazine.
Yeah, I do. I agree. I mean, obviously, I agree.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a missing demographic. I do believe that deeply. And I also think that's why it's been such a struggle for me to break into high fashion and do runway, because it's just everyone like kind of does this like autocorrect. Like, no, you don't look like a runway model. I don't know if this is good. And then suddenly when you get through that like error that most casting directors tend to have around runway shows, they're like, oh, wait, hold on a minute. This is going to boost our sales. Or wait, hold on a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's why I wanted to start off the show with the numbers. When you look at those numbers and you see who's really buying things, I mean, when I see a 24-year-old telling me that this particular cosmetic is going to help my wrinkles, I'm like, honey, who cares this person? No offense. I mean, she's gorgeous and she looks great and she caught my attention, but she doesn't know a thing about wrinkles.
Well, exactly true. And there are statistics that I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but most 19 to 25-year-old women or girls are getting cast for mid-30s advertising.
I always joke, my first big campaign, I was the chic 70-year-old and I was 56.
There you go. And I think it's also not good because it puts, I mean, this is a big topic as well. It's a false sense of reality to everyone. Not just women, not just whatever, to literally anyone on the planet.
It's a lot of pressure.
It really is. And it's also not real. And I think that that's something that's very important to address. And me, I don't have children yet. Every single one of my girlfriends, and I could name you 10 off the top of my head, all have children or are in the process of having a child. Your body is changing in your mid-30s, whether you like it or not, frankly. And onwards, it's constantly changing. And it doesn't mean it's getting bigger or smaller. I just mean it's changing.
Just changing.
Yeah. And after you have a child,
it changes even more. And no matter what you do, I mean, it's changed.
Yes. And for me, I have a girlfriend that called me up last night who's English, but she lives in San Diego. And she's like, Charlotte, I'm nursing. I have to go on holiday. She's just had her third baby in 4 years. Can I just add? And she's like, I'm nursing. I have to go on holiday. Can you please give me a swim brand that will cover my half belly, because, she's still getting rid of her pregnant belly, and that I can nurse very quickly. And I was like, yes, I know this one brand. It's great. But it costs a lot more money, but she doesn't mind spending more money for easy access, for modesty pads, for a fit that actually suits her body type, for if her child is, vomiting all over her swimsuit, she can throw it in the wash and it won't get ruined, if you buy a fast fashion brand. So something I notice, and I know that we all know, is when you reach a certain age, you're willing to spend a bit more money, or you're willing to invest in something that has quality, that has good fabrics, that has a good fit, that has taken more time to cultivate a product that is going to deliver those things, rather than quickly buying 4 different swimsuits at the quickest dollar store you can find. And I believe that, it shows in the stats. I mean, they speak for themselves and how much money women my age spend on fashion. So why are big brands still casting, for want of a better word, 20-year-old college students for when women my age are calling me? Yes. They want to know from women like me what I want. And it's the same with everything. It's even household things. I mean, you buy houses. Yeah. I only want certain toasters now because I know that if I buy a toaster or a kettle from round the corner in a couple of months, it's going to pack up and I have to buy another one. And I don't want the hassle of that, let alone to have to toss it out, buy a new one, So it's the same with everything, I think.
It's funny. Since you mentioned toasters.
Yes.
you have another side of you besides fit modeling, besides doing runway, besides cycling all over New York City, which is how we first met when you walked into an event with your cycling helmet.
And a miniskirt.
May
I add. And it was at the Rainbow Room.
Yes, it
was.
I
felt so out of place. I was in sneakers and a tiny little miniskirt and a helmet in hand. And thank God I met you, Diane. You were like, hi, I'll be your friend today. I was like, thank goodness.
And it was the start of a wonderful friendship.
Yeah.
But you mentioned toasters. And I want to go to that topic because you have an interest in homes.
Yes.
And, excuse me, in construction. And you've been buying properties with that modeling money. You've been buying properties and turning them into homes. And homes not just for you, but others. I'd love to hear about this, side transition that is a very equally weighted part of your life.
I am so passionate about it also, especially coming from England. And obviously I grew up in London, so it's still slightly smaller living. But I grew up in a house. And when I moved to America, I was like, wait, this is an apartment. This is like a glorified roommate situation. Everyone's like, oh no, like we all grew up in apartments. Like that's, very a New York thing. But I'm especially passionate about this because of living in New York, I think, and living in literal shoeboxes for so many years. Mm-hmm. In 2017, I was very lucky enough to work incredibly hard as a fit model and make enough money to buy my own house. And at the time, I was living in the meatpacking district, which I thought was fun and cool. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at studios in the West Village. And for the exact same price, I could buy a house just across the water in Jersey City. And so I did just that. I bought a house. It was way too big for me. But I was like, oh my gosh, wow.
I have space finally.
Yeah, I had a kitchen that wasn't in the same room as my bathroom or my living room. So I was like, wow, okay. I also had a dining room. It was fabulous. I had a basement. Like that was amazing. But yeah, so I bought my first house and I'm so glad and grateful that I did that. And I really think all my time in fashion or, coming from dancing to move into fashion really helped cultivate that for me because I do have an eye for interiors.
You do. I've seen some of your work. Yeah. It's phenomenal.
Thank you. And I really think it's very important. And I feel like I sound like my father or everyone's mother or father here, but I feel like it's so important to have a side hustle, not to have a backup plan per se. Like if you want to be an astronaut, you can. Apparently, Katy Perry just did it too. So if you
that's a whole other topic.
Yeah. If you want to be anything, I really believe that you can be absolutely anything you want. I mean, even if it's like a ladybug, you can be anything you want. But I do think it's very important.
That's another topic too.
Yeah, I do think it's very important to be able to have different side hustles and different pools of things to go into. I do think diversity is very important. I think I'm slightly... I get very bored with one thing. I can't do a 9 to 5. I can't be stuck in a box. I always want to do what I want to do, which is, it can come across as very spoiled and stubborn. But I also think I'd like to say it's also a good trait because it makes me more entrepreneurial. And so in saying that, I've decided to buy a house because I didn't want to pay rent anymore. And I just thought it was silly to keep paying rent and also to buy a tiny little shoebox apartment. I was also paying HOA fees on that. I was like, I'm going to buy a house and I'm going to do it. And so I did. And then I had a horrific accident in 2020. I was hit by a car and COVID happened and the whole world stopped, but also so did I. I really stopped. And not only did I fly out of fashion and everything I ever thought I even had, I couldn't walk for 6 months. So it was a really crazy time for me, emotionally, mentally, in many ways, and the rest of the world, of course. But I especially got...
You were dealing with a major accident.
I got hit pretty hard. Yeah. And I also ran out of money. And at the time, I, again, being stubborn, was like, I am not selling my house. Girlfriend, you are not selling your house. You worked so hard to get here, yada, yada, yada. Long story short, I got talked into selling my house. And I did. And I made money on it, Diane. And I didn't just make a small amount. I made a good amount of money on that. And I was like,
Sure, in Jersey City, it was a point everyone wanted to move out of New York.
Well, it was also perfect for that because I was right by the Path train, very accessible into Manhattan. It was a house with a back garden in a cool-ish neighborhood that was affordable. I mean, all of these houses are well under $1 million. Some of them are even under $500,000. So that's really, in New York City, boy, is that affordable or close enough. Like, everyone would jump at that. And at COVID, they did. And so I was really glad to make money on that. And I put my money, instead of sticking it all in the bank, I did put a little bit of money in the bank. I did also buy myself a few fancy handbags. What can I say? And then I bought a small apartment from there. And I thought, I'll live in the apartment, keep the rest of the money and whatever. And I didn't. I ended up renting it out, made money on that. And then a year later, I had more money from working and doing other things. And I bought when I mean money, these houses are falling down, just to be clear. And you've seen.
I saw one of them, Charlotte, and if I didn't see the aftermath, we wouldn't be taking on this portion of the show.
Okay.
When I saw the before, you know what I said. I said,
You were like, do not.
You got to be kidding me. There's no way you can do this on a budget.
Yeah.
And not go completely upside down. And not only did you do it, I was truly blown away by the end result.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well, thank you for
From
saying
not
that.
just the design, I mean, the hard things, but then how you decorated it.
Yeah. So essentially, I bought and sold and bought and sold, and I flipped 4 houses and flipped 6 properties. So apartments, and I even bought an apartment in Miami during COVID, and that did incredibly well because everybody moved down to Florida. Now, yes, my timing was lucky, but also I believe in luck to a certain degree, but I know that I'm a bit of a hustler and I did what I needed to do. I also make sure I'm there for every viewing, so I'm selling the house myself and everybody gets to meet me, the girl that blood, sweat and tears in that puppy. So that's kind of what I did, and I managed to gross 2.4 million in that amount of time, which is a good number.
That's a big number.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of myself.
You should
to
be
say
proud of that.
Because that's been a side hustle. So being able to get into real estate and flip houses, and this isn't a real estate broker, this is more of an investor situation, really, but with not a lot of money. It is possible, and I could still model on the side. Granted, it wasn't always easy if I had like a nightmare with a tenant or something, but it's definitely manageable. And now I'm on my property number 6, and I have tenants living upstairs. I make a good amount of kind of rent, as it were, and I have an absolutely fabulous property. And I feel so grateful, Diane, to be able to be in this situation. Granted, moving 22 times in 17 years.
Oh, I can relate.
Is probably not ideal. And also moving 7 times in 4 years and last year I moved 3 times in 1 year. So those kind of things people don't want to do. And it's not fun. But equally, the reward after all of that slogging around, and when I mean I move, I have a 70-gallon fish tank that I'm moving with me every time. Like, it's not just, and 6 bikes. It's not just like I'm moving a few things here and there. It's a hefty move. But that kind of that work for me it's still worth it. And I love the process of having a team, of managing a team, of understanding, I'll tell you and everyone that house that I bought was infested with rats and I didn't know. It was so bad. I mean, it was so bad. But, what do you do with rats? Because rats aren't mice. You have to call the city for rats. That's a city problem. Do I want to move into a rat-infested house? Should I just drop this and leave? A lot of big, big problems, mold issues, walls falling down, things that I would never, big girl problems, as you say.
Right.
Things that I would never even think about. Somebody cut a tree down at the front of my house and the city started fining me. And I had no idea what I was getting fined for. All of these issues, but this is life. And this is also being a homeowner. And this is the problems you bump into when you do want to kind of progress. And so although they're very annoying, it's kind of learning to take them on and be like, all right, I'm just going to let that part go. And I'm going to go and focus on this modeling job I have or whatever. And I think the diversity in being able to flip houses, the creativity behind that, in being able to design my own kitchen, to make
multiple kitchens.
Yeah, 3 in one house.
3 in the last one. 3 kitchens, and they all look different.
They do. Thank you. Yeah. So just to close on that, really, I do feel very grateful for that, but it's not for the faint-hearted. Like, you know, people that aren't willing to just like dive in the deep end and just hope that you swim and don't drown. I don't recommend it for some kinds of people, but me just being that ex-dancer turned kind of, how am I going to hustle my way to make money and do this, and kind of figuring out the game and puzzle that is making money in life. And so yeah.
Where do you imagine this going next?
Thank you for that question.
Yeah.
I would like to be able to not flip the house that I live in. And I think moving forward, I would love to be able to, which I've been looking at, as I told you before we started, to buy an apartment building. And it's kind of for New Yorkers-ish. And I know, because I've been a New Yorker, even though I have this accent, for many, many years. And to give people with less, I guess, kind of the less than, not the highest income, to give people that are on rent-controlled apartments actually a good experience. Because everyone's always like, oh, my landlord and da-da-da, but I have a great rent. And it's like, I would love to be able to offer great rents and also give you a really awesome living experience in New York or the surrounding area. So, and also maybe give you a nice looking apartment too. So let's see. I mean, dreams do come true. But yeah, I would love to continue my house flipping venture, wherever that takes me. And it's only been me. I'm a one-man shop. So I've done the investing, I've done the flipping, I've done the construction, I've done the managing. So I don't know if I would want to get more of a team or find a way, because I'm quite, as you and I both know, because we've worked together, definitely quite, I want it like this, I want it like that. So I'm not sure if I'd be able to manage a team, but maybe I would.
I think your sense of excellence shows. You know, you're very demanding, not just on others, but yourself.
Very much so myself. And I think that's how it kind of bleeds in to standards being very high for everybody. So I would like to continue that, but I would still like to continue modeling, because I think it has been, we've discussed this, I think it's so fun to be able, I also feel so privileged to be in a position that I can be and do these runway shows and then flip a house next week and then do another runway show and then maybe do a podcast with Diane and do all these different things. Now,
or a commercial or an advertisement, because that's the fascinating thing about the modeling world and commercials and print, that if you look at ads, there's every kind of person in them. It's just you don't see it as much in the fashion side. But if you think about commercials in general, it's an opportunity that you could continue with your whole life.
And I want to, because I enjoy it, but also because I know how desperately needed it is for my demographic. I really believe that to be true. And I'm not talking about inclusivity, because I think the fashion industry, now this is incredibly controversial, believe that they've become very inclusive. I think putting someone very, very slim, very, very tall on the front of a magazine is fine. And I think putting somebody that is, you know, also in the plus size range on a magazine, also fine. But there is a hell of a lot of missing pieces in between that. And also ages in between that. And I hope that it will continue to evolve. And I think that they've finally got the idea, but I think they've swung the pendulum so kind of far back and forth.
That's a very interesting point.
That what about,
it's almost like the extremes are being seen and not like a Charlotte in the middle.
Yeah. Well, what about the people in the middle? Because that's the majority of us. What about the girls with short blonde hair and tattoos and bruises and what have you? So what about those women in their 30s that are just everyday women, you know? And I don't mean that in a way that they're less than or they're, you know, the girl next door style. But I mean it in like, there is a lot of us out there.
Yeah.
And there is probably not as many even plus size demographic out there as there is of that mid 30s to 40s range of women just sitting at home nursing a baby, looking at what they should buy next. You know, so for me, I feel like fashion needs to wake up there, and the money that they're losing out on is also like, hello guys.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know about you, Diane, but I definitely see a lot of interesting people in commercials, and I think that's fabulous. But I'm not super duper interesting looking. I don't have purple hair or a shaved head or, you know, piercings everywhere.
I don't think most people do. So as you said, it's those, you know, there are the extremes.
Yep.
But it's there was a great expression by Edie Weiner, a futurist, and she used to say the extremes inform the middle, because most people are in that middle somewhere. And, you know, from that rail thin heroin chic to, you know, the mega plus model, there's the majority of the people in between.
And you're looking at her.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What do you get feedback from casting agents or brands? I'm just curious.
About me?
One way or another. Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Because I can be here.
Yes, of course.
I usually don't get booked.
Uh-huh.
It's a very small percentage. And then when I do get booked, Diane, they don't stop booking me.
They don't stop.
Yeah.
Oh, I would believe that because once they see the many faces of Charlotte Reardon, because truly you are transformative. I mean, I remember seeing pictures of you sitting behind some fashion show, and you had very dark eye makeup on, and I'm looking at the pictures thinking, I wonder why Charlotte put this out, because I didn't realize it was you. And I was wondering who it was. I think I even asked you who it was.
I remember that show.
And you said, that's me. And so took that picture when I was just sitting in between my walk on the runway.
Yeah.
And I was blown away.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was horror makeup or anything. It was just different makeup, and you took on a whole new look.
Yeah.
And plus, if anyone actually ever saw you move, I mean, like I wasn't joking about the Macarena. I meant it seriously. I think it was one of the first things I saw when I first met you, you know, but, and I used to crack up when we would get together, and all of a sudden Charlotte would do a high kick over her head like, hi, Diane. And the high would be a leg all the way up over your head. And I'm thinking, oh my God, my groin's hurting. And she just said hello with her leg.
Yes, I did. Indeed. Yeah. Well, I think also for me, I have a lot of experience in fashion.
Yeah.
And of course, 10 plus years or 13 years as a fit model is one thing. But
That's all that dancing.
Yeah, but I also show up on time.
Yes.
I bring all the shoes. I bring 1,000,001 different shoes. I bring 10 different bras. You know, and that's just experience, I think. And double checking the call sheet before you go to bed at night to make sure, you know, showing up with really no makeup on when they ask you. And you and I have discussed that many times. So for me, I think the dancing part does play a big part, like you said, but also the many, many years that I have. I have a lot of
professionalism.
years. Yeah, I think so. And I treat it like a job. I don't treat it like, oh yeah, I just got booked on this commercial. It's like, oh no, I have a job tomorrow, so I've got to go to bed at 9:00 and I need to be up and Adam and have everything ready to go, you know, and I print out everything ready to go. But I also think that people see the moment they do cotton on to hiring a girl my age, a woman my age, somebody like me, not only do they see, you know, the knowledge that I have in fit, but they also see what a difference it makes to have a sore thumb kind of stick out like that. But yes, professionalism, but also somebody like me, my age, and the reaction. Because I think it's about changing people's ideas, and the reaction isn't bad. You know, it's always good, and it's always like, oh, okay, this is interesting. She isn't like, you know, like I said before, she doesn't have spiky hair or she's not, you know, causing somebody to double take, but there is a different level of special, which is normal. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it's interesting because as I preface this show, the industry's picking up on it. You're getting a lot of media coverage. You're getting a lot of outlets saying,
hold on a minute.
Maybe we should, exactly. Hold on a minute, as Charlotte would say. Hold on a minute.
Yeah. So, yeah. So let's try and continue this, you know?
Yes. Yes. Now, I'm sure you get asked all the time, and we were talking about professionalism, and since we might as well save you a lot of time, because I'm sure everyone says, Charlotte, I want to be a model. You know, can you help make me a model? How do you? And so in the future, you can say, well, watch the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast
Yep.
and watch it all the way to the end, because in the end,
Yeah.
I share my advice about becoming a model.
Yeah.
Obviously, as we've discussed, anyone has a look that is bookable. But how, in your opinion, what would be the advice you would give someone?
So yes, anybody can be a model. But if you really want to be a model, you have to be willing to sacrifice a lot of money on test shoots, first of all, and a serious amount of time. And I think people don't take it seriously. People are like, oh, my pictures are good enough. You know, like my aunt took them and they're photoshopped in a certain way. No, anyone's going to see through that. And I think how do I explain this? People can tell the difference between a model and not a model when they've been in the industry. Casting directors will spot you a mile off, an absolute mile off. And if your book isn't impeccable when you're going to interview at a modeling agency or what have you, or if your digitals aren't the best that they can be, because normally they look for Polaroids or digitals, same thing, which is essentially a very basic look with next to no makeup on, standing, taken with a regular camera, and it's not been photoshopped. That's like a digital or a Polaroid for people.
Which is the biggest hurdle for most people to accept when you say to them, well, you're going to need digitals.
Yeah.
And that skinny pair of jeans, the tight T-shirt, and no makeup, and your hair basically flat.
Yeah. Yeah. And they're like, oh, but I love this shirt. No, I love this. And I want to put my eyelashes on. It's like, no, guys, you're never going to get hired. But for me, it's really a sacrifice. Like everybody, quote unquote, wants to be a model, but people don't realize what the sacrifice is. And it's the same with if you want to be a singer, if you want to be a dancer, if you want to be I don't know, anything. I really believe that there is so much sacrifice that goes into it. And for me, it took me many years to accept the fact that I need to invest $1,500 a year at least just on getting photo shoots done for myself personally to keep my portfolio up to date. Yeah. Because that's what casting directors look at. I think if you really, really want to model, which, yes, I do. That's all my DMs, by the way. That's like every other DM is, sure, I will absolutely help you, but are you willing to make the sacrifice? Are you willing to actually take this seriously? Yes, I'm willing to take it seriously. Okay, well, then you need to invest $5,000 in this, and oh, no, well, I couldn't possibly. Well, then, you know. So for me, it's really about sacrificing your time and just investing your money in you, in your career. And it's also about not giving up, being tenacious. I love that word.
Yes, that's a good word.
Oh, tenacious.
And you are tenacious.
Yeah, and like I still have so many no's, Diane. And I have been on hold just alone this month. I was on hold for 5 different name brands that you would know for sure. And currently I'm on hold for one of the biggest commercials I think of my whole entire life. Now, let's hope we book it, but I'm not crossing my fingers or my toes because I was on hold for 5 different commercials last month and I didn't book any of them. But I had to hold the date and I had to wait till 9 o'clock to get the call. Hey, Charlotte, sorry, we've decided to go with the other model. Okay, fine. Yep. So you have to be willing to do that and you have to be okay with even now I'm 15 years in fashion, in modeling. I'm still getting no's today. Yeah. And I'm still getting a lot of them. And what people see is my yeses. They don't see all the no's.
Oh, exactly.
And they don't see that, oh, gosh, okay, well, maybe I should just flip another house this year instead of whatever. So I think those are the 2 things for me is really just being willing to sacrifice everything.
And the early nights, because you don't know if you're going to get that last minute call, or the not going out and having a drink, or not eating that slice of pizza you want to eat at night because you're hungry at 5, but at 9 you actually may find out you're due on set tomorrow at 6 a.m.
Well, exactly.
And you don't want to arrive puffy and swollen from the salt.
Well, exactly. And I think I think now I'm a bit more like, well, maybe I'll just have the pizza. But I agree. And I also think that Some people just aren't, this sounds pretty ruthless. Some people just aren't built for that.
Yeah, I agree.
And some people, people would say they come to New York because they want to be an actor. And it's like, do you want to be an actor or do you want to be like an extra? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know because I don't know about acting, but I do know that modeling, acting, a lot of these industries have very similar ways in. And they think that just because Kate Moss got discovered in McDonald's, that maybe they'll get discovered that way. And 90% of people, everyone says, oh, your overnight success takes 10 years.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
Yeah, so do I.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Charlotte, I could keep talking to you for at least another hour. So we're going to have to schedule a lunch very
Yes, please.
But thank you, everyone. This has been the Silver Disobedience Perception Dynamics podcast. I have been speaking with Charlotte Reardon, who is absolutely special. She's amazing. All of her contact information is going to be below, so you can follow her on Instagram, which I highly recommend you do, and look for that Macarena video or something else she posts, because she's guaranteed to please with something that will make you smile and laugh and feel inspired. Thank you so much, Charlotte.
Thank you for having me, Diane.
Thanks, everyone. Please hit subscribe and share this with your friends, especially your friends that want to learn more about the modeling industry, because they'll certainly have learned a lot through this episode. Thanks.